Number 60. Ed Wood. Tim Burton directed this wonderfully touching and hilarious biopic about Edward D. Wood Jr., a man commonly referred to as the worst director of all time. Johnny Depp plays the title role, and he is fantastic. The relationship he forms with Bela Lugosi, played by Martin Landau, is really the heart of the movie. But the scenes of Wood filming his now legendary bad movies are incredible and bring plenty of laughs. Number 59. Mean Streets. An early film from Martin Scorsese. This is the one, as they say, put him on the map. Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro star in this film, and their performances are electric. If you only know Robert De Niro from Meet the Fockers and whatever this stupid shit is, watch him in this movie. The movie doesn't have much of a plot, just a bunch of small-time hoodlums and various riffraff, but Scorsese knows how to craft a film, with the expected incredible camera work and awesome soundtrack. Number 58. The Exorcist. The legendary horror film about a little girl who gets possessed and her mom and a couple of priests who try to help her. The directing by William Friedkin is outstanding, and ultimately, the movie is fucking terrifying. The makeup, combined with the intense performance by Linda Blair, along with that creepy voice, make for one of the scariest films I've ever seen. The fact that some people have found this film to be A, not scary, and B, funny, I'll never understand. Number 57. Shoot the Piano Player. One of my favorite directors, Francois Truffaut, was one of the pioneers during a movement in the late 1950s known as the French New Wave. His earliest films are brought up most often, The 400 Blows and Jules and Jim usually. Now those films are fantastic, absolutely, but one I've loved even more was 1960's Shoot the Piano Player. The film deals with Charlie, the piano player of the title, as he helps his criminal brother who's being pursued by gangsters, and also gets involved with the waitress. The movie is sweet, charming, and ultimately tragic. Number 56. The Thing. John Carpenter's 1982 awesome sci-fi horror film about a team of guys in Antarctica who are infiltrated by a shape-shifting alien. The cast is really good, with the always great Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Mr. Diabetes himself, Wilford Brimley. The special effects are amazing, and there's my favorite performance from a dog in a movie. And maybe, if you make a prequel to The Thing, and you don't want everyone to think it's a remake, don't call it the same damn thing. Number 55. JFK. I originally thought this was a biopic on John F. Kennedy, and as a teenager, it didn't really interest me much. But when I found out it was actually about the assassination of JFK and the conspiracy that sprung from it, I became curious. The web the movie spins and all the rabbit holes it gets lost in along the way with the many characters presented with an all-star cast is phenomenal. The editing in this film is probably some of the best I've ever seen. Also, it has a really good score by John Williams. The movie is quite controversial, claiming director Oliver Stone stretches the truth quite a bit. Even if the film were to be proven 100% inaccurate, it would still be an awesome movie. Number 54. Raising Arizona. One of Joel and Ethan Coen's earliest efforts, Raising Arizona is an entertaining and hilarious movie. Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter play a couple who can't have children of their own and decide to kidnap a baby from a couple who just had quintuplets. The film is over the top at times, but grounded just enough for you to care about the characters. John Goodman and William Forsythe steal the show as two convicts who break out of jail. This film, along with their follow-up, Miller's Crossing, showed that the Coen brothers were masters of zany comedy and serious drama. Number 53. The Silence of the Lambs. Jonathan Demme's 1991 thriller about an FBI agent tracking down a serial killer is one of the creepiest films I've ever seen. The direction in this film is masterful, with the close-ups being extremely unsettling. All of the performances are great, of course. You've got Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, who both won Oscars, but also of note is Ted Levine as the serial killer they're tracking down. Since I'm sure you're curious, here are my brief thoughts on the other Hannibal Lecter films. Manhunter was made before Silence of the Lambs, and it features Hannibal Lecter being played by Brian Cox. It's a solid early Michael Mann film, but it's no Silence of the Lambs. Red Dragon, it's actually a remake of Manhunter. It features Anthony Hopkins as Lecter again. Again, solid film, especially for Brett Ratner. Hannibal, a Ridley Scott movie surprisingly. It's a follow-up to Silence of the Lambs, but it's goddamn awful. Even Jodie Foster didn't want to come back for this shitfest. Number 52. Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams is a marvelous 1989 film starring Kevin Costner. He plays an Iowa farmer who, after hearing voices in his cornfield, decides to build a baseball diamond, and soon after, deceased baseball players show up. On paper, the film sounds ridiculous, and probably wouldn't work as well if it wasn't executed so brilliantly. The whole cast is great, especially James Earl Jones. Number 51. The Road Warrior. Known as Mad Max 2 to everywhere else but the US, The Road Warrior is one of the all-time great action films. Mel Gibson stars as Max Rockatansky, a burnt-out man in the post-apocalyptic landscapes of the future, trying to scavenge gasoline. The villains are especially memorable. I love The Road Warrior, but an honorable mention goes to Fury Road. If the film had been out longer, it may have been on this list instead. Number 50. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Classic 1982 Spielberg film about an extraterrestrial who gets left behind on Earth and the boy who befriends him. This is probably the quintessential Spielberg movie, as many of the ideas and themes influence much of his career from here on out. The cast is great, especially Henry Thomas as Elliot. He gives one of the all-time great child performances. The film is quite intense and emotional, with a few genuinely scary moments. I originally saw this at the drive-in along with The Dark Crystal. Back when kids' movies didn't care if you got nightmares. Number 49. Beetlejuice. A great 1988 Tim Burton film about a young couple, played by Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis, who end up dying and enter the afterlife, to which they are confined to their house. Some new people move in and they consult an evil spirit named Beetlejuice, played by a manic Michael Keaton. The movie is so creative and a bit morbid, which you could expect from earlier Tim Burton movies. Visually, the movie is Burton-esque big time, and the soundtrack by Danny Elfman is over-the-top brilliant. Number 48. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. You know what's hilarious? Nuclear annihilation. Well, it can be presented humorously, such as in this 1964 Stanley Kubrick masterpiece. Sterling Hayden plays a crazed general who orders an attack on Russia. Slim Pickens plays one of the bomber pilots, George C. Scott plays the lunatic General Buck Turgidson, and Peter Sellers plays 3 different characters: the President, a British officer, and the title character, Dr. Strangelove. The movie has many classic moments, and it's so ridiculous what transpires throughout the film. Number 47. Kill Bill, Volumes 1 and 2. Quentin Tarantino delivered an amazing 1-2 punch knockout with the release of Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. He considers it one whole movie, but the 2 volumes are quite different. The first volume is heavy on the action, the second one focused more on characters and dialogue. The fight scenes in these films are some of the best I've ever seen, and the dialogue has the expected Tarantino edge. The movies are basically a revenge murder story, but told in a creative, non-linear fashion, with a killer soundtrack. Number 46. Touch of Evil. Citizen Kane is almost always considered to be Orson Welles' greatest film, if not the greatest of all time. He also made other amazing films, like The Trial, The Lady from Shanghai, a trio of Shakespeare films, and my personal favorite, 1958's Touch of Evil. The film is a visual marvel. Welles' direction and camera work were way ahead of its time. Plus you got Janet Leigh being terrorized in a motel 2 years before Psycho. Number 45. Planet of the Apes. The original 1968 Planet of the Apes is one of the all-time great sci-fi films. The movie, again, stars Charlton Heston. Him and his crew crash land on an alien planet, several thousand years in the future, only to find out the place is run by highly evolved apes. The movie is essentially a feature-length episode of The Twilight Zone, which makes sense since the story was originally done by Rod Serling. The movie is so entertaining and doesn't take itself too seriously, and also works as a social commentary. It also contains one of the greatest and my personal favorite twist ending of all time. Number 44. Die Hard. The original 1988 Die Hard is an essential 80s action movie prototype. Bruce Willis stars as John McClane battling a bunch of terrorists in a building in LA, led by the great Alan Rickman. What else is there to say? It's great! The first 2 sequels are pretty good, but then comes this. And then this. Now there's talks of doing a prequel with McClane as a young cop. Blah. Number 43. Taxi Driver. Robert De Niro stars as Travis Bickle, an unstable Vietnam vet who moonlights as a taxi driver. The movie is incredibly dark and disturbing at times, and you can feel the tension rising as Travis becomes more unhinged by society. De Niro is incredible in this film, as well as Harvey Keitel, Sybil Shepherd, Albert Brooks, and a young Jodie Foster. This was the final film of legendary composer Bernard Herrmann, and his music here is incredible. Number 42. The Royal Tenenbaums. 2001's The Royal Tenenbaums is by far my favorite Wes Anderson film. It deals with a dysfunctional family led by the estranged father Royal, played brilliantly by Gene Hackman, and his efforts to reconnect with them towards the end of his life. The visual symmetry in this film is great, and his selection of songs is always spot on. The whole cast is great, and there are many heartfelt moments as well as hilarious ones. Number 41. Seven Samurai. The classic and influential tale of a small village that hires some samurai, 7 to be exact, to protect them from some incoming bandits. This great Akira Kurosawa film has been remade a few times, influenced a few other movies. Hell, even Stephen King's fifth Dark Tower book took elements from it as well. The cast is great, especially Toshiro Mifune. He's a force of nature in this movie. Almost 3.5 hours long, the film is never boring, and the final battle in the rain is an exhilarating tour de force. Kurosawa has many awesome movies, but this may be his very best.